Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Aryeh Eisenberg, the CEO of Edu-Together. Great to be with you for our next podcast episode. It's my pleasure to welcome our special guest today, Mr. Derek Luebbe, who actually wears two hats in the educational world. Derek is the head of school of the Shanghai Community International School and is also the CEO of an exciting technology platform called Huddle Up. And we're really happy to have you, Derek, to discuss both the school and Huddle Up. Not often that we get to discuss two exciting projects at one time. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Aryeh. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. So I have to ask I'm sure a question you've been asked a lot of times. Tell us a little bit about yourself, but most importantly, how did a person from North Carolina make his way all the way to Shanghai, China, to continue your educational work over there?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, I was from Minnesota, so I only ended up in North Carolina.
Okay, that was the pit stop, right?
Yeah, it was 28 long years ago, and I remember having my degree as a teacher and wanting to be a teacher, but honestly, not thinking I was quite yet ready to settle down and be an adult. And so a wise man who was kind of a family friend said to me, you know what you should do? Go teach overseas for a year or two. You know, you won't settle down there. You'll just teach and kind of be young and then come back to the States and continue teaching somewhere in a district or whatever in Minnesota. And I thought that was a great idea. And that was 1995. And
Wow.
I set off to Egypt at that point. Ended up meeting my wife to be. She is from Georgia, and we've been overseas for 28 years. We've been to Egypt and Taiwan. We were in China for 6 years at two different cities and opened a school in what's called Hangzhou, China. And then spent 8 years in Budapest, and then now back to China since 2016, basically.
Wow, your passport must be an interesting story in itself, but that's really amazing that you've had so many international opportunities. So what's it like to, we've seen some of the movies out there, but what's it like to be living and working in China? That must be a really special experience.
Well, it is. We've really enjoyed it. I would say a good chunk of our parenting and children's development has happened, in Shanghai. Our youngest was born in Hangzhou, which actually is I think it's the kind of the beginning political birthplace of Xi Jinping, the current ruler. So when I was there, I got the random opportunity to meet him when he was just a provincial leader. But that's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know him from Adam at the time, but life is life like that. And then, but yeah, it's actually Shanghai in China is a pretty easy place. I mean, it's changed ridiculously in 20 years. But even in the beginning, it was always kind of, they say the wild, wild east. You could kind of find anything you want to do. It just took a lot of creativity and searching. And now, honestly, it's really easy. They've just gone uber steroids with using their phones and using their apps. And in many, many instances, it's more convenient than the States to get something.
Really? That's interesting.
Sacrifice things for that. You were talking about Amazon earlier, and Amazon's got a presence and we can get things delivered, but they have platforms like Taobao and such, which are kind of rivals, and you never really you never leave your house or your apartment, which is sad, but you can just get everything from groceries to
sad and really cool both at the same time, right? Like I think that's the world we live in today. You take it or you leave it, but it sounds like you have everything that you could want, even so far away from your original home, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's been lucky. We've been lucky with that.
So tell us a little bit about Shanghai Community International School. What types of students attend the school, and how have you built the school up over the years that you've been there?
Sure. So SCIS actually has two campuses in Shanghai. We are a 3 IB program, so we follow the PYP, the MYP, and the DP program. I am the head of school for the smaller of the two campuses, which is on the Pudong side of the river. We have a little over 300 kids, And we have about 45 nationalities. We are one of the most
Wow.
diverse schools in Shanghai. So yeah, we attract families just about from anywhere. We generally label it as like a third of the families come from North and South America, and a third come from Europe and Africa, and about a third come from Asia and Australia. But it's a great place, and the other campus is similar. They're much bigger, about 1,000 kids on that campus
Wow.
on the other side of the river. But
So,
um, but yeah, it's a very community-minded school. We try to do a lot. We try to do a lot of trying to help our system fit the kids instead of having our kids fit into our system. There's a lot of individualization, and we kind of ask a lot of our faculty, I think, in terms of trying to build that community by building relationships. And I think that's one of the things that sort of stands out. On our campus specifically, we are probably also known, we have one of the more robust learning support programs, which is not
really? Oh,
always the case with international schools. I think the U.S.
very
schools do
true.
a much better job of providing for needs of kids who learn differently. And I think in a city like Shanghai, my board was fortunate. I and my board and our school community was fortunate enough to kind of be on the front end of that, and they've invested heavily, but it's been really, really good for the school too. So we feel pretty proud of that aspect as well.
That's really incredible. Like you said, I think it is something that in a lot of international schools you don't see as much as we would like, but it's great that you've been able to build those resources and to build those services. I'm curious, as an IB school, I imagine most of the instruction takes place in English, but with students coming from so many different countries and so many different cultures, how do you handle just the everyday, the social aspects, the communications and things that we take for granted sometimes, but might not be so easy if you're in an environment with so many different nationalities.
Well, you're well versed in education as well, Aryeh. So I don't think there's a magic wand to this one. Actually, we probably have a few baseline resources that we go to, like any school would. We have from a ratio perspective, I think we're pretty well staffed to deal with EAL, and our class sizes in general are small, so that helps. But a lot of it goes back to what I spoke about earlier, which is just trying to build that sense of community. And if you really can get to know the children, I think one thing that's in our advantage, I guess, is because the spread of languages is so diverse, it makes it easier to acclimate each new child because there's always
Sure.
two kids.
He's going to have a buddy.
They're gonna have a buddy, and there's no overwhelming second language. I mean, you could kind of say
That's a
Chinese, but it's
good way
not.
of looking at it.
Yeah, yeah. The playground language tends to be English, no matter where you're from. So kids quickly learn language through play.
Yeah.
I'd like to think it's the things we're doing in the classroom, but I think I would be lying to myself. I think most of their their language development happens in social situations, on the playground, on the basketball team, whatever. And that's great. And that's how it should be.
Now, it reminds me, I was working in an international school recently, and I heard a student who was not from the United States or any other English-speaking country started speaking to his classmate, not in perfect English, but it was much better English than I thought this student was able to speak in. And I asked him, I said, how do you know English so well? And his answer was a little troubling, but he said to me, Netflix, and kind of that was a normal answer. So I guess it's different for kids than for us old people. But that's great that they have so many opportunities. It must be really interesting to work in such an international environment. How do you handle things like holidays and observances? We joke sometimes that especially with some school calendars that, it's a holiday every week, but for you guys, it must actually really happen that way.
Yeah, it very well could. We have a little longer school year. We typically start with students. I think our first day this next year is August 13th.
Oh, wow.
And about June 18th, right around there. So it's a little longer than the States, but that's, of course, as you said, because we kind of double up on the holidays. We
Sure.
tend to do most American holidays with like a 3-week Christmas break around the New Year there. And then, of course, you have the Chinese holidays like Chinese New Year and other festivals that are celebrated in China. And so you end up kind of doubling up, which extends the year, but also gives you some nice breaks during the year as well. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of fun.
And as an IB school, I imagine you're offering both levels, the SL and the HL courses. So you must have a pretty robust course catalog or different programs that the students can take depending on what they want to learn and what they're looking to do.
Yeah, we've had to be fairly creative in the sense because we're so small. That's actually one of our challenges is how to
Yeah.
provide offerings. And so there are a few outside providers where if we have a student who's 1 or 2 as a singleton that wants, let's say, IB psychology, and we don't offer that, we would be able to provide that through an outside provider. But for the most part, we have to become really flexible and kind of outline our policies regarding how HL students, which is higher level, and SL students are going to be together, when they can be together. And then we do have a few students who are actually in those same classes who are taking what we call, high school credit courses. They're not fully following the SL program. And that's fine too, as long as we've articulated what that means and been clear with parents. And, then they would just receive like a high school diploma in New York City. Yeah.
Well, it's so nice for your students that you guys offer so many different options and that you have that flexibility. I know I was working with a group a year or 2 ago, and we had a few students who just weren't ready for the rigors of the IB program. And one of the things I was able to help the school with through my organization, Edu-Together, was being able to provide that U.S. diploma track. So we had kind of the same thing where the students in that track were still in some of the IB courses, but were doing a different certification. So it's great to be able to have that flexibility. Derek, I want to turn our attention for a second to your other hat, if you will, Huddle Up Learning. I want, if you wouldn't mind, just, I think you'll do it much better than I can. Tell us a little bit about Huddle Up and what amazing platform you have been instrumental in creating. And I really mean the amazing part. I've had a chance to play now a little bit and to experience Huddle Up, and I think you have something really special here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that in advance, but yeah, I'll try to give it a whirl here. So it's been a journey. Let's start with that, because I think any entrepreneur who starts something, as you can probably attest, it never turns out the way you think it's going to turn out when you begin. But originally, what Huddle Up Learning was created for, along with a team here is of some other educators, we created a platform that was meant to, in essence, be a classroom-based tool for problem-based learning. We saw, I guess, the team that kind of created this and developed it, a big gap with the way that learning was very passive. And, we are presented with content, and then we maybe take some quizzes or some comprehension tests and things like that. And we
kind of the standard model that we've known since the beginning of education, right?
And I think that's shaped quite a bit more than we'd like to admit by the platforms that teachers or in schools are forced to work with. And so I wanted to provide a learning platform that could not only do the quizzes and the resources and the sharings you'd see on any typical LMS, but was structured in a way that did 2 things differently. One is I felt learning is more about the application of your content and skills. It's not the understanding of your content and skills. And so we want to provide opportunities for learners to actually share their learning in the application phase so that, and this is the second part, they can give each other peer feedback that is both qualitative and quantitative. And so really we wanted to take the learning journey and stop making it so isolation focused and you kind of log into a platform and do your tasks for the day. But learning should be collaborative, and it should be about generating new ideas, and it should be about learning from each other. And so that's really the premise of what founded Huddle Up Learning in the first place. And yes, we have K-12 and university classrooms using it. But as we were talking before, I think maybe the sweeter spot for Huddle Up, which I had not envisioned earlier, is in the adult learning space, is in the organizational learning and the adult learning space. And that's with schools as well as with those outside of the education industry as well. But I think just speaking as a head of school, we often, let's say we often have a strategic initiative that is very hard to track and to garner buy-in from all of the constituents. And so we needed a model where we can all contribute and we can all see what each other is contributing, or what of my peers are contributing along the way, so that we can see the kind of the growth and the evolution, whether that's positive or negative. How are we trying to implement this new initiative? And of course, the same would be true for learning. As a head of school, I've paid 5 digits many, many times for people to come in and lead excellent, exciting workshops and presentations. And I've sent teachers away to take part in those as well. And what I think Huddle Up does really well is it provides an asynchronous space so that we have the time and space to share our ideas after the training. Because adults, unlike the students, we are even more limited, right, with our time to be together. And so Huddle Up it kind of leverages the idea that the best learning we can do happens honestly between the trainings. When comes the first time and then they come 3 months later to check up. It's, hey, what are we doing as individuals and as an organization in the middle there? How are we applying that, and how can we learn from each other asynchronously and in a very easy way? And that's what we're trying to leverage, the idea that we have to go beyond passive comprehension if we really want to try to move the needle with learning. And I think Huddle Up is trying to address that as best we can.
I think you really created a very unique approach, because as we've discussed, there are so many LMS platforms on the market today, too many to even start to list them. But at the end of the day, most of the standard LMS platforms are pretty similar. Like you said, it's kind of the old formula, the materials, then with the quiz or the assessment, whatever it is, and then we're done, and you move on to something else. And what you've really managed to create, like you said, is a truly collaborative atmosphere where it's not just okay, I read this, I viewed this, let me see if I understand it, but you've really created something that goes a step further and has allowed, whether it be students or teachers or both, to be able to collaborate and to give each other feedback, which I think is so unique to the LMS space, but yet so important to our educational process. That I know I saw Huddle Up for the first time, and I was kind of scratching my head to say, like, wow, like this is such an obvious step, but yet this is the first time I'm ever seen an LMS that allows this to happen. So really amazing. Thank you on behalf of every teacher out there for creating it. Derek, walk us through, if you don't mind, like a specific example, of when, how a teacher, let's say for a high school or a college class, might utilize the Huddle Up platform, like for a unit or for a subject or something like that.
Sure. So I guess I could go with one that's in a good way. It kind of mirrors the education space too. We have a multi-year project running with Valparaiso University in their teacher education program. And so what they were looking for, they were using and still are using the Google Classroom platform,
sure,
right? But what they wanted, in their words, were like, well, we let the students share their unit plans and their lesson plans, and they kind of look at them, but then we have separate documents where they might, try to provide feedback, or they take a survey and give those survey data. They wanted to create a space, like, as you mentioned, what Huddle Up does, which is where they're all together. So they still use Google Classroom. They share all their kind of content in Google Classroom. When it comes time to share the students' applications of learning, they share those within the Huddle Up platform. And then, as you kind of thankfully nicely have mentioned, it's all kind of organized in a way where the solution is there, the feedback sits under it, the data sits under it. And so that's really allowed them just a much more easy way to see, like, who's getting this done, what's the data say in real time about these solutions. On a macro level, what does the professor need to focus on that maybe isn't sticking as well as it should? And I think one of the benefits to that is, the entire process is kind of archived for everyone. And I don't think that's something we do very well either, because I think oftentimes when you get into those application-based learning, project-based learning models, the culminating event is usually some sort of a gallery walk or some sort of a physical, and this kind of takes that gallery walk and lets it be placed, in a virtual world, so that 6 months from now, the learning doesn't have to stop. You could go back and see 20 different solutions to how those
and even continue the conversation, I guess. Like even 6 months from now, a year from now, to be able to say, hey, I tried this, give me some feedback.
And you can kind of see the evolution of each learner's progress over that time, and you have 20 different ideas in the platform. So that's been one way they've used it. They actually took it a step further this last year, and we actually developed in tandem with them a little bit of a level that I think is really exciting. It's I think for years as a school educator, I've always struggled with how do you start to measure soft skills, things like creativity, critical thinking,
Great question.
of collaboration. And so what we did in tandem with Valparaiso was develop a system and implement it with Huddle Up, where they could identify goals like that. And what we did is we quantified over time within those rubrics where you peer evaluate, you can tag individual items within that rubric with a specific goal. So I'll just use creativity. There's going to be, each learner might submit 12 submissions over 3 or 4 months, and each submission might have a rubric with 3 or 4 or 5 criteria. And a few of those criteria, of course, they're going to be specific and to the task in their description, but they can also be tagged on the side with, hey, this is an element or an aspect of creativity. And so now we start to get kind of a portrait for creativity for the entire group and for each learner to say, hey, are you making progress? Are your peers finding your solutions, in this case, more and more creative, or more and more, focused on analysis, or more and more those soft skills that we talk about, but we really, really struggle to find environments and experiences where there can be some data attached to them. And so that's been a really exciting development to build that out and kind of see where that goes. And I truly think we're at the tip of the iceberg with that one. But,
yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago that I find as a teacher, and I'm sure you've been there too, when we teach a unit, when we teach a subject, we never really know, are the students getting it? Is what we're giving them seeping in? Is it penetrating? And this, it sounds like, here there's now a real life way to find out whether that's happening, and that to me is so important. I mean, how often do we teach a unit? I know I'm a history teacher, and every time I like to think I know what I'm doing, but at the end it's like, okay, did they understand that concept? Let me give them a test and see. And we know that it's not a foolproof system in that way, and this is really, this brings that to a whole new level. So really, really, really awesome to hear about what you guys are doing. I'm curious, like in today's world of technology, we always say that we're now preparing our students for 21st century learning. I still don't know exactly what that means because, the 21st century learning continues to evolve quicker than I think we can sometimes keep up with. But, one of the big things that's become a hot topic in today's day and age is AI, and both in, for positive uses within education and for, the not so positive, the academic, questionable, we'll call it the questionable academic reasons. So, I'm curious, like with a platform like Huddle Up, how can AI usage, on both sides of that, both the positive and the negative, is that something that the platform can, incorporate or can, be able to track? Like how could the whole AI concept be either a positive development or something that the platform can help to kind of, watch out for?
Well, let me first I'm going to concur with you as I'm going to put my head of school hat on.
Okay.
We have really, it certainly seems like technology has outpaced the change model in schools. And so
For
that's
sure.
just been exacerbated with AI for sure. And obviously it's got a lot of people, including me, and I'm sure you as well, scratching their heads like, how do we go about this? And I also want to be transparent. Huddle Up, I think, is ripe for significant amount of AI because you have so much idea generation created within it. But we are very much a startup, Aryeh, so we haven't put anything in it to this point. We are in a little bit of talks right now with a few potential partners, but I want to be clear. There's no AI in this at the moment. And so we're kind of looking forward to that as a potential next step as well. But I think on the pedagogical level, one of the things that resonated with me with Huddle Up as I put my Huddle Up hat on is that I think a lot of AI gets a focus on assessment and how are we going to deal with cheating and plagiarism and things like that. And I think that's all very valid. One of the things that I've heard, and I forget who shared it or I read it, I can't remember, but it's not my idea, but it was really resonated with me, was learning, especially in regards to AI, it's about the struggle that individuals or groups go through as they make progress and grow. And I think that's the rub with a lot of people is people think, well, this is so easy. They're just typing something in and it's producing a document or whatever. And where's the struggle in that? And, we use analogies like a calculator, and I'm sure there was a similar argument made back then. And what the point of this is that I really feel like there's opportunities here, not for us to stop thinking of the AI conundrum only in the assessment phase. I think that's part of our dilemma is we think
Very true.
we're going to teach the same way. And then now with AI, how do we assess differently? And by the way, I do think we need to assess differently. So I don't want to discredit that.
But I think that's really the whole, I think Huddle Up's the philosophy. I think that's why I asked, because I think what you guys are doing at Huddle Up, really, it supports that idea of being able to provide various types of assessments, and that's what to me is so interesting.
See that struggle. That's the point that I really think Huddle Up, or frankly, any problem-based learning platform or model promotes is we want to embrace AI. Please use AI is what we should be saying. But we want to see the progress and the struggle that the learner has taken over 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks to engage with AI and other resources like humans and books and websites.
Hey, remember us?
To actually grow in their learning. And when we put everything on a summative exam at the end, we're really putting a lot of pressure on ourselves to control this thing called AI and really make sure we've, put it in its cage and we have it neatly wrapped up so that whatever assessment we give is AI proof or to whatever degree you want to make. And I think we need to start looking at learning experiences. And I think Huddle Up does this very well. So I'll pat myself on the back where we're looking at learners' journeys and being able to say, you were here on September 1. These were the questions you were asking. These are the answers you didn't know. And here's how you progressed over time. And that in itself, embrace AI, but use that as a model for sharing what does learning actually mean? Because the struggle is, we want that struggle.
Sure.
That's beautiful.
So Derek, I wish I had had access to Huddle Up at the beginning of the previous school year, because I'll tell you, I teach history every year. I was teaching U.S. history. You too. Okay, so we can compare battle stories another time.
Yeah.
But I always start the year off and I ask my students what to them is the most significant episode of U.S. history of in the last 200, I say in the last 200 or so years. And it's interesting because some of the students don't think too far in the past. So they'll say things like 9/11, or they'll say, one student actually went and said the Berlin Wall coming down, which I was impressed that he actually remembered that, but I actually changed the assignment a little bit this year, and I want to know, as with both of your hats on, I'm curious to get your feedback. I said to them, if you don't remember or you need more information, go ahead and use AI. No problem. I said, this is a good time to use it, because I don't expect you to remember everything that happened in history over the last 200 years. I said, I'd love for you to say you could do that, but let's be honest, especially coming in after a summer vacation. So I allowed the students to do it. In fact, I made it a classroom assignment so that we could do it together. But we actually started a discussion board I had them post this as a discussion in our learning management system, which was not Huddle Up, unfortunately, but we were using another platform. And basically, as the year went on, every once in a while I would come back to this assignment and I would ask them to update it. Has your opinion changed? Now that you've learned more about current events, now that more things have happened in the world. I know, for example, after it happened on October 7th in Israel, a lot of the students in my class said, oh, I want to change my answer now. And I said, okay. And then we were able to move a little bit away from the AI, because now this is something that they're remembering firsthand, and that they didn't need to rely on that. And I'm just, when I first saw Huddle Up, that this was the project that really I thought of, because I said, wow, how amazing would it be to have this in a collaborative space where the students can so easily be able to give each other feedback and ideas. So I think that you've, like I said, I'm only upset that I didn't know about this sooner. So
Well, first of all, I would commend you. That's a great assignment. First and foremost. So you were asking in the AI context first, and I would say to me, that's a wonderful step. Let them use AI. This is not about identifying big events. That's not your goal in this game. This is about what lens are you looking at these events through to justify your rationale for why this is the most significant event in the U.S. history in the last 200 years. So, having a laundry list of events is fantastic, because it gives them more exposure, and actually maybe Huddle Up. If people chose different answers, you would see different answers with rationale. The other thing I would add that I think is really intriguing, and now I'm getting on my Huddle Up hat a little bit, is that the analysis or the thought bubble that you want in those students' head is, I'm going to pick 9/11 because of these aspects, or I'm going to pick, the Berlin Wall or the Civil War, or whatever it is they're picking. And it's that part of their analysis, to me, that's really intriguing. Why did you pick what you picked? And it would be really cool, and this is what some people are doing with Huddle Up now, is to say, what's the criteria? What's the rubric? If we had a classroom rubric around what makes it a significant event, I'm sure the class could think of 3 or 4 criteria, right? Now you can start to have them share their understandings. And as you rightly pointed out, over time, those perceptions are going to change even about a singular event. Their analysis of 9/11 will change according to that rubric. And more importantly, they're going to think of new things, the October 7th, anything. And it can fit into that framework for how do we evaluate impact or significance, or whatever the prompt is. And so you're starting to really see more than just the skill of saying, is this important or not, which everyone can have an opinion on, and it's a great assignment. But it's like, why is this important? And there's going to be a lot of push and pull around that rubric, which is awesome, because then they're leaving that classroom equipped with, these are the 4 things I'm going to evaluate for the rest of my life significant events on. And, you're giving them more tools, shall you say, beyond the classroom to frame their thinking. And hopefully, I think we're both wise enough and have been around kids enough to know they're probably going to come up with a 5th element that you and I didn't think of, and it'll only appear in November when some new event happens and everyone raises their eyebrows and thinks, our current criteria doesn't quite fit this as well as we thought. Yet we all agree this is incredibly significant. So how are we going to adjust the criteria through which we evaluate impact or significance or whatever? So All of that is really cool, and I wish I was in your history class when I was younger. Because honestly, that's the reason I went into teaching history. Is I think I was in some pretty boring history classes, and I thought I think there's a better way to do this. But yeah,
So
I needed
that's
prompts like
funny.
that to
Well,
fuel me.
thank you, thank you for that. Although I'd like to be in your history class now too, because I'm sure your students learn a lot from you as well. I think you said something very important. Our job as teachers is not to just provide information; it's to help them answer that question why, and I think that's what sometimes is so forgotten in the educational journeys that we're all on. And listen, we're all sometimes teaching to tests, we're teaching to meet deadlines, we're teaching to get from points A to B to C. And I think it's so important. I think one of the things that the Huddle Up platform seems to be able to do well is to help students answer that most important question, why? Not just who, what, where, when, but the why, and that I think is an invaluable resource and an invaluable process for both the students and for the teachers. And it sounds like you guys have really created an amazing tool to be able to do that. Derek, I'm curious, for anybody who wants to sign up or check out Huddle Up, what's the best way for people to do that?
The website is www.huddleuplearning.com. There are free demos, so you can,
Great.
trial it for 2 weeks, see if it fits, create a project. You can be a learner in a project. You can also, create your own project and kind of invite your friends or your colleagues to see if this is a fit for you. Because, yeah, we don't want to put a square peg in a round hole, but it's a pretty versatile platform. And so, one of the things I get excited about is just talking with people like you and others in the space of learning, in the space of training, in the space of development, and seeing what are the gaps that, each organization or each individual is
Sure.
seeing, because people have some pretty creative ideas for how to use a platform like Huddle Up. And they're certainly not ones that I initially, thought
Well,
of.
those are the best. Those are the best stories. We can say, "I never dreamed of this," but wow, look what they're doing. For those people who want to find out more about the Shanghai Community International School, if anybody's planning on relocating or spending some time in Shanghai, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'll give two plugs here. One is for Shanghai Community School in general. It's scis-china.org, and you can get more information about both of our campuses and our IB programs and our kids, etc. And there's probably a few listeners who are thinking, what is this whole international world like, and how do I get into it? And I would say there's at least two or three major recruiting sites that those educators should consider.
Oh, great.
Search Associates is one, International School Services is another, Stroll is another one. And if you Google those, you'll be able to find those. And they run recruiting fairs. Maybe there's 20 all through the year from different organizations, and they're just like it sounds. You show up on a weekend and you're not sure where you're going, and you meet people like me who are the heads of school or recruiting or HR people from different schools. And hopefully, if you're lucky, before the weekend, you might have 2 or 3 offers, and you're considering,
Wow.
are you going to go to, are you going to go to Argentina, or are you going to go to Greece, or are you going to go to Thailand? And that's kind of
What a choice. My goodness. Well, Derek Luebbe, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Your story is really an amazing one on both sides, both from the school side and from the Huddle Up side. I think you've done some amazing work, and it's so interesting to hear about your experiences and about your educational journey. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Aryeh, thank you. And best of luck with your work too. You're doing some great innovative stuff.
Thank you so much.
So all good. And yeah, I hope to stay in touch.
Absolutely. So thank you for everybody for tuning in today. For those of you who would like more information about our podcast, please feel free to visit us at www.edutogether.org. I'm Aryeh Eisenberg, and I look forward to seeing you back for our next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.